Mr. Mayor, Jen's gonna be tad bit late, and Harmony, I don't think is gonna be able to make it. She might be able to join later on.
Okay. Again, we've got 4, so we've got a quorum, so we could probably just get started.
Yep, and we are. All right, we're ready when you are, Mr. Mayor.
All right, sounds good. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's a regular meeting of the Seldovia City Council, Monday, August 28th, 2023 at 6:07 p.m. We'll go ahead and do roll call. Rojas.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Keithley.
Here.
Sweat.
Here.
Okay, we've got, and then Swick and Peyton are, sounds like Peyton will not be joining us tonight, and Swick is running late. So right now, we have 4 out of 6 present, so we do have a quorum. So we will go ahead and continue on with the meeting. And Liz or Heidi, if one of you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, as we said, right now, Peyton is excused this evening, and then Swick will be joining us shortly. Item D, agenda approval. We'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion by Rojas to approve tonight's agenda with a second by Keithley. Any additional discussion on tonight's agenda before we vote? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the approval of tonight's agenda. All those in favor, Rojas?
Aye.
Kennedy?
Aye.
Keithley?
Aye.
Sweat?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries with a vote of 4 in the affirmative and 2 absent. I'll take us to item E, consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are approved with a single motion, no discussion, and 1 vote. A council member may request to remove any item for discussion and a separate vote. Items removed from the consent agenda will be placed under new business. And tonight's consent agenda consists of the approval of minutes of the regular meeting, August 14th, 2023. We have item E2A, which is ordinance introduction, which is ordinance 24-02, a non-code ordinance of the City Council of the City of Seldovia, Alaska, appropriating $30,000 from the General Fund, Public Safety Department to the AMLIP Vehicle Replacement Fund, and authorizing the city manager to acquire a Seldovia refuse truck not to exceed $45,089.23. City manager to acquire a Seldovia refuse truck not to exceed $45,000. Oh, sorry about that. We got to run on here from the Vehicle Replacement Fund. Item E3A is a resolution 24-04, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Seldovia, Alaska, appointing election judges for the regular municipal election to be held on October 3rd, 2023. So we've got the approval of minutes, 1 ordinance for introduction, and 1 resolution. Does any member wish to remove any item tonight to speak on separately? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on tonight's consent agenda, or excuse me, we'll look for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda by Keithley with a second by Sweat. Any further discussion before we vote? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the approval of tonight's consent agenda. All those in favor, Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Keithley,
Aye.
and Sweat.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes with 4 voting in the affirmative and 2 absent. Item F, mayoral proclamations, none. Item G, public presentation prior notice. And looks like we have 2 tonight. The first one's going to be Elena. Elena, I'm going to let you say your last name. And you're on mute.
Yeah, okay.
There we go.
Elena Suleimani.
Okay, there we go.
That's
Elena
it.
is going to give us discuss the tsunami inundation zone and an information pamphlet, and then she'll be followed by Jerry Stranick in regards to a historic boardwalk project. So Elena, we'll go ahead and welcome, and we'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Can I share my screen? Okay. Let me try that. Okay, share. Let's see if I can go. Do you see that?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. So this is just to prepare you for our visit next week. So we will have a meeting on September 7th with emergency officials and tribal representatives, and we will work on developing the tsunami evacuation line. And I want to stress that it's going to be a product of the community. So it's not what we tell you what to do. We did our calculations. We have that red line, they call it the wiggle, the red line on the map. But now the community needs to make a decision where to put the inundation line, because probably you noticed that red line sometimes just cut through somebody's backyard. The red line doesn't know about, where the properties are. And so this is why the community needs to decide where it makes sense to put the evacuation line. And there will be 3 of us, Dr. Barrett from Alaska Division of Geological Geophysical Surveys. This is where we publish our tsunami maps and reports. So I will be there, and also Anthony from Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. He is in charge of the tsunami and earthquake and other hazards program at the DHS. And also there will be a journalist with us from Chicago. He will be writing about our work with communities. So, and this is how it's going to look. That brochure on the right will be Know Your Tsunami Hazard in Seldovia. And I hope you have an example of the Homer brochure so you can see what kind of information goes in there. And this project is funded by the National Tsunami Hazard Mitigation Program. So we will be working with you from now till the end of August, where we need to print the brochures. And we have funds to print a certain number of brochures for the community. If you tell us how many you need, we will print them. So here, for example, I am delivering those boxes to Samantha in Craig. So we made those brochures already for several communities. So why they have guidelines? The program has specific guidelines. So first of all, when we have the inundation map, which again, I refer to that red line, then they suggest that evacuation line should encompass all areas of the map, meaning that preferably it needs to be above the inundation line. But again, these are suggestions and guidelines. The community has the final word on where to put the evacuation line, because this is you who are going to evacuate your citizens. So then also they suggest to create some kind of safety buffer that extends the evacuation line or evacuation zone beyond the modeled inundation zone. So whatever we model, we create a safety buffer just in case. So we know that there are limits to our modeling, some kind of maybe errors, but so we need to be safe. And also the important thing is that those evacuation zone boundaries, they need to follow like logical administrative boundaries, streets or parcel boundaries or property lines or roads or something. So they cannot go through somebody's backyard because, you know, it's pretty much impossible to explain this person why half of his backyard is safe and half is not. So we are not even supposed to have questions like that from the public. So it needs to be totally logical. And finally, because we who did the calculations, we know what kind of accuracy and limitations those maps have. You know, you can consult with us at any time if you have questions. Like, where does it come from? Where do those guidelines come from? Yeah, I mentioned the most important one. If the evacuation line cuts through somebody's property, if the owners are confused. So it's not supposed to be the case. The evacuation guidelines need to be very, very clear to the public. And if we have the road network and we have lines following the roads, it will be easier to do the evacuation because people will know which street is good and which street is not good. And yes, people can easily memorize which side of the road needs to be evacuated. In many states, like in Oregon, for example, they have so-called the Blue Line Project. They actually paint streets with blue color. And so people can see where the safe zone is and where the hazard zone is, just the Blue Line Project. And also the placement of the tsunami signage will make more sense when the evacuation line is established. So we've had many different approaches to that process. For example, if you look at the Kodiak line, that red line, this one, it's what we modeled. It's from our model, it's from the tsunami map. But they decided to make the evacuation boundary shown here in the blue color. So they made a pretty large buffer in that area. This was the community decision. They said, no, we are not going to make this an evacuation zone. We want to extend it in that area. Homer, they just said, no, we want a buffer to the nearest street. So they looked at the red line and they said, the very next street will be the evacuation zone. Sitka, completely different approach. They said, forget about your red line, which is what we've calculated. They said, we want to have 25 feet contour, which is the yellow line. And then they said, let's extend that 25 feet contour to the next street. And this is what they got as an evacuation line. The blue line is evacuation line. So they went even further from our line. They created a pretty large safety buffer. Seward, the opposite, minimal buffer. They said, okay, this is your red line. This is your red line. And the yellow is the evacuation zone. So it's the community decision, and this is how different communities decide what they want to do. So now it's your kind of turn. What I'm going to do, I'm going to print those big maps with the parcels, with the red line, just like that. I will bring them to community on September 7th, and we can just sit together and start working on that line. Of course, it will take several iterations and adjustments, but we need to make sure that the community gets what the community wants. So I'm done. You can ask me questions.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
We'll go ahead and open it up to council for any questions.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, I look forward to the meeting in September, but what information are you going on for when you present to Seldovia? The information that you're bringing down to us, has that been developed by University of Alaska Fairbanks or?
It's been developed by me.
Oh, by you? As far as the line that
Yeah.
Seldovia has. For
Mhm.
the potential of
We
tsunami.
already calculated, the first time I published the report for Homer and Seldovia, it was in 2005. It was the original report. After 2011, tsunami in Japan and after 2004 tsunami in Indonesia, we learned a lot of things about how tsunamis can be produced by huge earthquakes and how scientists didn't take into account very specific features of that tsunami generation. So we published the revised version of the Homer and Seldovia report in 2018. But Seldovia is the community, believe it or not, in Alaska that was remapped more than anyone, because you have a very intelligent scientist named Brett Higman, who watches closely what kind of data we use in our modeling. And every time you get a new set of data, he calls us and he says, hello, you need to recalculate everything again. And we say, yes, sir. And we recalculate everything again. And just recently, we updated the Seldovia map with the new elevation data calculations. So, and we published the addendum to the report, to the updated 2018 report. So we keep updating Seldovia, non-stop, I would say.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure that
Yeah,
was a
so,
big help.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're lucky to have Brent and his family. He's into that stuff, so it's pretty cool. That was a follow-up question I was going to have. When you do the modeling, does it take into account anecdotal testimony from people that were there, in some of the the 1964 quake?
This is exactly where we need your input on that brochure, because in this brochure, we will include everything you want to include. Like in many communities that experienced the 1964, we have either observations that are well recorded in National Academy of Sciences reports, or in cases like Klawok, for example, we put elders' memories, because there are people who actually remember things like somebody remembered that the water was over the bridge. Somebody remembered that, somebody pulled the girl out of the water by hair. Like horrible stories. And like Old Harbor, for example, it's just, heartbreaking stories. So we can include all of that. And this is why we want the brochure to be community specific and kind of made with the community. So it can be useful for you guys.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that sounds good. It sounds like it'd be a good opportunity for some of the older folks that were
Yes.
there during those times to come out and share some stories for sure. So
Yeah,
that's
Oh,
good.
yeah.
Anyone else from council? Any additional questions? And then I have a follow-up. How long will this meeting take? Is this going to be just like a one session for a couple hours, or is it going to be over a day or two, or how do you guys typically hold these meetings?
I can tell you what the schedule is. So in the morning, I go to the school and I present a lecture to school students at 9:30 to 10:30. Then we start the meeting at 11, and we need to be picked up at Jackalow Bay at 2 p.m. So we have that time between 11 and whatever time we need to run to the whatever vehicle to get to Jackalow. But this is just the introductory meeting, just the beginning. We will keep working with, we need to appoint a person like point of contact, because, just recently we developed a new software, which is amazing, that you can actually drag that line. The person who will be like our point of contact will be able to edit the line online. And it's very easy to use. It's kind of intuitive. And this is how we start. We just do the meeting, introduce that software, maybe draw some portions of the line on the big pieces of sheets that I'm going to bring. And then we'll see how we go from there. We just need to establish the workflow. Because there will be iterations. And also, I'm going to send you in advance the questionnaire that we send to every community before we start working, because I'll show just a second, I'll show what I mean.
Okay.
So this is the brochure, right? So this is the brochure. It opens like that. and it opens like that. So the map will be here, but on the back, there will be very specific information from the community like this, like the contacts and everything else. And here, we will need to, for the legend, we will need to establish all the places that you want us to put on the map. And all these will be in that questionnaire. So you will have to kind of answer every question there and see what you want to put into the brochure, including those memories, for example, if you have any.
Okay, yeah, it looks like an incredible amount of information. What, just real quick, I noticed there was a couple QR codes on there.
Oh, yeah,
for example,
absolutely.
on that one, what are those QR codes, for example?
Again, you can do whatever QR codes you want, but
Yep.
this one is the City of Homer website, for example, this QR code. Then this one is the online tool where we have all the maps for the state of Alaska. And this one is the Homeland Security and Emergency Management QR code. But again, you can choose whatever QR codes you want.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting that you wouldn't like for my example or my experience, our experience, we just recently had a tsunami evacuation here just a few weeks ago, or 3 weeks or a month ago, from the earthquake that they had down by Sand Point. And it was kind of a big fiasco, quite honestly, is what it was. Yeah, to have folks that have Wi-Fi that don't have cell service, if they had a Q card for like to go directly to the National Tsunami or Alaska Tsunami Warning Center, that's usually where I go in these, because you can see. I hope to God that's information's pretty much accurate, because that's about all we've got to go off of, So yeah, this is a really fascinating program, and this will be something that truly will be needed by the community. I can see as a great asset. So looking forward to the process.
And what's important here? I've been doing tsunami studies. Oh my gosh, I started in 1986, by the way. And I can tell you that the most important thing is we need to just keep talking about that, right? Because maybe it's not going to happen during our children's lifetime, right? But grandchildren, oh yes. So they need to remember that. It's not like in Indonesia in 2004, those children ran to the shore to check out like what's happening there, because the previous huge tsunami that killed like thousands of people, it was like 100 years ago for them, right? Nobody told them about that.
Right.
That's why we kind of, and this is another way just to keep talking. If we have that, at least it will kind of settle in some collective memory, right? And then, of course, the children are the most important kind of audience for us. So we want to tell them, talk to your children, tell them about tsunamis. And it's not just here in Alaska, like people travel around the world, right? And you remember in 2004 in Indonesia, how many tourists from Europe died? Like insane number of tourists, like from Sweden, 360 people from Sweden died on that day.
Wow.
Like, yeah, I mean, they've never heard the word tsunami. They never knew that the water going away means that you have to run uphill immediately, right? Instead, they went to check out the fishes, right? And this is what I mean, like we need to keep talking, and it's just a good way to keep talking about tsunamis. Yeah.
Good. Well, we're looking forward to it. Any additional closing comments before we let the doctor go?
Thank you so much for listening to me.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentation tonight, and we'll see you here in 10 days or so.
Next week. Thank you. Fix the weather, please. Fix the weather.
Yeah, we'll try.
Yeah.
Okay, you have a good evening. Thank you for your presentation. Yep, goodbye.
Bye.
All right, well, super fascinating. That looks like something that we can look forward to. A fair number of the community members participating in, hopefully. All right, we'll go ahead to our next item, G2. Looks like we have Jerry Stranick up tonight for discussion or a little presentation on the historic boardwalk project.
Thank you. Yeah, just thanks for having me to present to you the new and improved try at getting a boardwalk, historic boardwalk inside the harbor. And it will start at the boat launch on the close to the old store there. And it'll go all the way around to, it'll be about 5 or 6 feet below grade, the top of the street. And it will go to the harbor ramp, and it'll go up there because you can't go underneath that. And then it'll go back down again and then continue on to Chris Latheen's house, where what do we call that park there? The
City Park.
city park. Yeah. Anyway, so that's where it'll connect up to the old boardwalk from there. So this, my daughter, when she went to Cornell Architecture School for her senior project, she did this model of her plan for the boardwalk and where it would go and so forth. It's really interesting to me to see what were vacant lots then and where there's businesses now and so forth. You can all come out and take a look at it if you want, and I can answer any questions, but basically it's has so many components to it and so forth. Heidi's been on the ball, and we already have a application for a grant for the engineering study on it to find out the feasibility of it, basically, and the cost, and is it worth it, and so forth. It takes a right of way for every person going there because everybody owns the land down to the mean low water. That's their land. Basically, it's all a riprap and some sandy areas too beyond that. So it will be, in talking to Tim Dillon, just to get his expertise on it and so forth, he brought up some really good points. And if anybody has any thoughts or whatever, even tonight, it just ask me about it, because we're trying to keep an ongoing thing of the do's and don'ts and hazards and that we have to do. So right now, there's 20 total lots along the way there. 8 belong to the city and 12 belong to private persons or businesses. 11 out of the 12 have already signed on that they're available to do a right of way through their property. So it would be, I would say, 6 to 10 feet wide, probably more along the line of 6. And it would have seating looking toward the boat harbor, nothing looking back. It would have all the proper netting and so forth, crab netting or whatever, to make it legal for less dangerous for kids, and so forth. So, and then it has a line that it would come out. There are areas like where we do snow pushes and so forth, in the wintertime. So Tim says, we'll just make it come out further during those areas, so that they can still dump the snow in those areas without having to stop the boardwalk or make it lift up or something like that, So there's several thought processes that have already gone around and around with that. This has been a project that I've had, I came here and I was seeing patients here in 73 and 76. We bought what we call the cottage now, right down there on the boardwalk. So I've really gotten fond of being on the boardwalk, and it's just a great place to be. So this is the big project, to do this, to get it completed, while we hope everybody gets on board, all 12 private owners. They can gain access from the top. If they want to make an entrance down to the boardwalk, they can have that. They don't have to if they don't want to. If they do, they'd have to connect up with a designed way, so that they could have a gate that could go up, but they could say private property, and just keep it locked or whatever, closed. Or it's a business, obviously you'd want people to come up, so it's another entryway for people to come up and use your business too. So it's got a lot of advantages. I think it would probably enhance the value of all properties by doing it and so forth. Yes, the people who are right on it there, it's a double-edged sword. It's maybe a little bit of privacy by noise, whatever, but I think it's all a livable situation, and I think everybody really wants to see it happen. I think like I said, it would enhance, right now we have a problem where the people are walking down the street, right, all the tourists, for 4 hours a day, sometimes 6 abreast and whatever. So it gives a way for them to come back. It would be like a promenade down and on the boardwalk back, or go the other way or whatever. Tim Dillon has talked about building a Seafarers Monument in there, some memorial in there somewhere, probably around the pavilion area or something like that. So it would be another little out. So instead of just 6 feet or 8 feet, it would go out in a semicircular thing with a gazebo type thing on it or something, to have a, like, similar. The one in Homer is more, it's on shore, so there's concrete and everything in that. But this would be designed as with Tim's, beautiful post and beam construction and so forth. So it'd really be a special place for gatherings, small gatherings and so forth. So there's opportunities for lots of thoughts, lots of input and everything. We're excited to get it going. I've talked to people at the, we expect to hopefully get grants from the Rasmussen Foundation. Has already expressed an interest and was asked to give a proposal to them. So it'll be a multi-level thing. I would kind of envision trying to get people that were donors could buy so many feet of it, of the boardwalk, and get their family name on it or something that lasts forever, engraved or something, though that some of the old time families, I'm sure, would love to chip together and have their notoriety of their little section of the boardwalk, so. Anyway, those are it's been a dream of mine for a long time. So hopefully we can accomplish it this time. This is the old boardwalk, or the new old boardwalk. The old boardwalk we are applying for a grant. I just already got that going, the engineering part, but it also includes the old boardwalk, which is in a fairly big state of disrepair. It needs a lot of things. So an event happened where they were tearing the wood off the bridge, and I saw it going on, and I got a hold of the city down there and said, what are they, or I asked them what they were doing that. And they said, we're just taking it out to the airport, dumping it there, and it's sort of a free for all. Whoever wants some comes gets it. I ran down to City Hall and says, hey, can we ask them for 3 loads of that stuff, so that, because it's the same dimension as the boardwalk is. And I said, that would be a huge savings in raw material, plus a great cooperation of state and local government, working together to accomplish a goal, so I thought it was just a great thing. The city just said, made the phone call, and the next 3 loads came into there, and we got it marked city property now, so forth, because some things tend to move by themselves, but anyway, so we're looking forward to getting that project done. This earth around, since the 64 earthquake, they have an effect called rebound, and it's been pushing up all the time. So, but everything moves. You can look at, well, I had a telephone pole, light pole, electricity, that was leaning towards my cottage, the old house and stuff. And it was going it was almost 20 degrees, and I kept bugging HEA about it. And then I said, I really need a new roof. So, I think it's coming this way. It should be pretty soon. They were there the next week fixing, So anyway, but you see the movement in this land where we're at. Everything goes toward the slough. Everything goes towards the water. And we're fighting that. And at several different properties, the boardwalk has experienced that. But it's probably the least expensive road in town on what the use it gets, the notoriety that has, the historical value, and so forth. So I think it's really worth the investment to make it right. Tim Dillon did a lot for the top part and had to shore up some things down there. That's got to be 10, 15 years ago anyway. And now it's time to actually do the certain amount underneath, but most of it is just the top surface, to where where we can use older repurposed material and make it happen. So that's part of this grant too, right? To get that engineered. Any questions at all?
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. Any questions from council or comments?
I have a comment.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was really disappointed the first time around when this didn't go through. And of course, I've always said that I think it was a mistake, although I definitely understand what the emotional thing of it was when when that happened, when the old boardwalk got destroyed. But I sure wish they would have rebuilt it. I think the way things have gone, whether we like it or not, the tourists would have, they love that kind of stuff. They like that old, historic view of Alaska, and so I applaud you for taking this on. Yeah, I hope I get to be a little tiny part of it. And I hope to see it in my lifetime.
It would be
So I'm
wonderful.
really excited about it.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Bobby. Anyone else?
Yeah, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm very excited about this when you brought this up earlier in the summer when I was over at your house. And I also look at it as another way to, move people off the street, give the tourists somewhere to go, but also for the community, because we have a community of very many, different ages. And this is a place that I always joke, there's a lot to do, but you have to really find out what it is. And it gives another activity. Like, just for a lot of people, that's going to be their hike. That's going to be their walking path. And it'll be a lot nicer than walking down the middle of the road and being in the middle of traffic, and safer for kids and elderly. And it'll be another place that when people come and it's been a rainy day and you say, oh, go to the Otterbahn, you can say, go walk the boardwalk. And it's actually going to have some a little bit of distance and things to see. So I think that's another facet you can kind of add as far as to promote it, is it's almost like another hiking path.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. Hey, Jerry, I have a quick question. Are you so do you have a steering committee developed? Or are you still looking to put together a steering committee and then start fleshing out some of the ideas and just kind of keep working on the framework even while we're, going through and waiting for permitting and stuff and grants and funding and engineering study?
Yeah, we are in the process of doing that. I'd like to get that going before I leave here at the end of September, early October. So we'll try to just get a steering committee ad hoc, whatever you call it, and just get that going to help, when we hopefully get a grant for some engineering study, just to see if it's even feasible. This could be way more complicated, way more expensive than we'd ever want to spend unless we had some super donor, but I think that, that we'll get that accomplished.
Yeah, no, sounds good. One quick idea. I know when they did the Sea Life Center, as you talked about fundraising, and this sounds crazy, but it's honestly not. I mean, call it $50 a board or whatever, or $100 a board to, deck that thing. And there might be, 10,000 of them, but, when they did the Sea Life Center, they sold individual bricks. And I think those were $50 or $100 a piece. You could do the same thing with, you get a plank and your name's engraved on that plank, your family's name's engraved on that plank. And, I don't think it would take long to have an incredible amount of planks purchased by individuals. They're just throwing that out there as an idea.
I agree with you on that. And I think there's pretty huge following just on Seldovia.com. We've got people, thousands, I think, and so I think there's a open source right there too for people to contribute also, one way or another.
Yeah, no, lots of good stuff. I'm definitely a supporter, and yeah, I'd like to see this thing go through, at least get a full discussion, pros and cons, and I'm sure there'll be lots of both. But again, I think in the end, I think it's something that could be workable. Jen, you got your hand up?
Yeah, so you said you had 11 out of the 12.
Yeah.
Do you have to have all 12? Go away. I hear you.
Yes,
You have to have all the 12 before you can move forward?
in my opinion, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was kind of like a majority rules thing or if that's just a courtesy or how that's going.
We're working on it.
Okay. And then, so you said in the snow dump areas, it's going to be further out. So it's just going to jog out further. So then you dump in between.
Right. Yes.
Okay. And there's, okay, a couple of those, I guess.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to envision, but
It would be, it would probably add just a little bit of personality with it too, where it could, just change directions a little bit, and you could work with that. But the other option is the engineer might say, well, why don't you just do a drawbridge, and in the wintertime you lift that up or whatever, and they do their snow dumping, and then in the spring you open it back up again or something. But I would think that I think it'd be a great cross-country skiing thing too, where you come down the boardwalk and you go through that and just get on that boardwalk and go up the other side and continue on, so there's people here when the snow gets just right. I like the boardwalk to be plowed, but I don't want it plowed down to the bottom. I want to leave about an inch or so or two of snow that's level so that skiers can, enjoy skiing too. So it can be a multi thing in both boardwalks,
right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Vivian, got a question?
Yeah, question. Yeah. Jerry, I think everybody's in full support of having a boardwalk. That'd be terrific. But I missed where you said it would go to. Would it end up just south of the dock ramp going down, or where would it end?
Oh, it ends at Chris Lathene's, past Chris Lathene's house. Between their properties, there's the park there. So that
Okay.
joins up then with the old boardwalk.
Okay, and then how far does it go towards the Harbor Masters?
Oh, see, it starts at the actual boat launch, up by the old store.
Oh,
And
okay.
It goes up, that's where you would come down on a handicap ramp. You would go all the way to the ramp the jetty, basically, goes out towards the harbor. Then you go up and around that and then back down and then end up by past Chris Lathene's at that park.
Okay, so it's a full harbor walk.
Yes, it's full inside. Yes.
Okay, great. And you're saying that you need to have all 12 landowners to agree, and you're missing one
Yes.
right now.
Yes.
Okay. So it'd be interesting to see, if we get the grant for the feasibility study, that would be tremendous. That's a huge, big start from there. So I really appreciate your time. And I'm sure there's lots of people who would be willing to, if it moves forward, to be a part of it. So thank you for your time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian.
Mayor Campbell.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I got a couple questions actually. Since we talked, Jerry, I just was curious if has there ever been any discussion about going beyond the boat launch out on the riprap, to the end, to the point there? I know there's been some discussion of the Fisherman's Memorial at one point being out there.
Yep.
I didn't know if there'd been any discussion about that.
I think this is a pretty big nut to chew on right now,
No, I agree.
But
I just wanted, just
I would be all
curious.
for that. I mean,
I'm just
that's
curious.
great.
Just putting it out there, the
Yeah.
thought, because I know there's been some discussion about that. And then the other thing, as far as the approaches go, maybe another thought, in my case, for example, maybe one approach would do for both of us, the bar and myself, because we have a pretty good piece of property between us. We're people could come up and maybe we could save some money as landowners.
Sure.
I don't know. I
All
just
negotiable.
just
Yeah.
something I'm thinking, you know, maybe down the road. And then I hate to even mention this, but has there ever been any discussion about liability for property owners for that?
Well,
And how does that
no
work?
more than they do for their own access to their
Business
property.
itself, right?
Yeah, so it's, there's there probably wouldn't be any handicap unless you had a little.
You'd have to have a ramp. It'd have to be approved,
Yeah,
right?
well, you don't have to because they have access there's access to your property.
Right.
Place, they're not.
Oh, I
it's
see
just-
what you're
it's
saying. Yeah,
Not there, you know.
yeah,
But you could put in a lift if you wanted to, you know, one of those chair things that goes up if
yeah, yeah.
you wanted to. But that's one thing that has to be addressed though too. You know, do you need two ways of handicap to get into a place or is one sufficient?
Yeah, well,
But because the whole boardwalk itself will be handicap accessible.
well, yeah, I'm absolutely in support of it. I just think we need to have more discussions and figure out what we're gonna do. I think it's a great thing. I don't think you're gonna run me off that simply, but
Hey, great.
I'm not the stick in the mud this time, so.
All right, thanks, John. All right, well, Jerry, thanks for coming in tonight and showing us the plan. And yeah, look forward to getting a steering committee together and continue some discussions on this.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, go ahead.
we do have a comment from the public.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, Pearlie Morrison. What I'm wondering is, if we get this new storm water thing going, if that happens, why do you need to go out with the ramp if we can't dump snow there no more?
Very good point. And most places in the country, it's illegal. Dump city or street stuff into the ocean.
Well, the way I understand it, if we do get this stormwater thing,
Yeah.
it's gonna be illegal for us to dump it there. Is it gonna be golf cart accessible? You're gonna,
No motor vehicles that, you know, we could debate on bicycles, but I don't even think that, and we don't allow them down on. We got them on the boardwalk where we're at all the time, the grandkids with these millions on wheels down there. Anyway, but, so that's the debatable thing, is it where I live on the boardwalk is a city street. That's a city street. This is not a city street, you know, it's just a boardwalk, so you could say no motorized vehicles. Oh, yeah, you could say no motorized vehicles, all debatable. All these things are just things to discuss, you know? Yeah, I think you got a good point, but I don't think the harbor master likes anybody riding a bike down on the harbor either, so, you know.
all right, thank you.
All right, any other comments from the public? Yeah, like I was saying earlier, there'll be lots of pros and cons, lots of things for the committee to discuss, and then I'm sure there'll be lots of public comment throughout the process. So, all right, thanks again, Jerry. Appreciate it, and have a good evening. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to item H, public presentation for items not on the agenda. Do we have anyone in the public that wishes to speak tonight?
There's no one at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Go to item I, committee and advisory board reports. I don't think we have any tonight. Item J, administrative reports, none. Item K1, public hearings, request for public input, FY 2023 Community Develop Block Grant projects for consideration. And we'll go ahead and turn it over to Heidi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just sharing my screen real quick here and hopefully it works a little bit better. Otherwise, this presentation is in your packet. And let's see here. So it's that time of year again. This comes around yearly, and it's The application isn't typically announced until the first week of September, and it's due the first week of December. But knowing that we have a lot coming up, I was hoping that we could have this conversation now to just be able to get council's input on if there is a project they want to pursue, if it's the right year to pursue a project, knowing we're just coming off of a project from the multipurpose building that is closing up here next month. So a very big important part of this process is public input, and that the project ideas come from the community. With that in mind, I did prepare a presentation, and we'll just go through it, and then hopefully we get some input at the end on whether this is something that the council and the public wants to pursue, and what it is that everybody wants to pursue if that's the case. So with that, the Community Development Block Grant is a flexible source of competitive funding for a broad range of community development activities. Grant funding is available for 3 project categories: community development, planning, and special economic development. You can read the overall mission of the State of Alaska CDBG program is to enhance the quality of life for low and moderate income residents, particularly in rural Alaska. The CDBG program fulfills this mission by acting upon its defined goals and objectives, and you can see below the national program goals. The CDBG program objectives here are long-term positive impact, reduction of clear and imminent threats and conditions detrimental to the health and safety of local residents, construction and improvement of public facilities, and the reduction of maintenance and operation costs. I will say there is a caveat to that. Governmental facilities do not qualify. So for instance, when they did the work on this building, because it's a community building with the library and Seldovia space and the fire hall, that was fine. But the council chambers portion, the city used funds from ARPA to take care of the windows and things in here, because this is used by a governmental entity for, if you can see the distinguished difference of a public purpose versus governmental purpose, direct governmental purpose. So developmental and use of design, engineering, architectural, and feasibility plans as appropriate, economic development, including business development, job creation, and planning, and evidence of strong local support, which is the reason to have these meetings, as well as inclusion in local community economic or capital improvement plans. So keep that in mind. It should be a project that's already designated as a priority. Use of local resources in combination with CDBG funding. In order to qualify, the benefiting population of the grant must be at least 51% low and moderate income persons. This is something that the city of Seldovia and the community of Seldovia waivers on. And according to data from 5 years ago that they had, we were actually over the 51%. And the city performed a survey from the community, and it included, because these projects impact both residents inside and outside city limits. So there was an argument and justification that it includes all of our residents because they're using these facilities and these opportunities. And with that, the survey did bring the income level down into a qualifying population. So you'll see that happened in 2018, and a new survey may be necessary for an upcoming application. We'll have to verify that. It sounded like that was probably. Funding: an applicant may apply for a maximum amount of $850,000 in grant funds during a funding cycle to address eligible community needs. Each applicant for CDBG funds is required to put up a minimum of 25% match. So that's also a big caveat for this opportunity. CDBG funds will be targeted toward projects which demonstrate at the time of application that adequate funding to complete the project is both available and documented. You'll see here that community development projects include things like health clinics, daycare centers, construction, reconstruction, water and sewer systems, docks and harbors, local service roads, boardwalks, barge facilities, airports, improved access, real property acquisition or building removal improvements, fire protection facilities, rehabilitation, purchase, acquisition, so development of public facilities. Planning includes community economic development plans, community land use plans, capital improvement plans, plan updates, feasibility studies, a variety of planning documents. And the third category is special economic development. This one has some special restrictions, and it's recommended that if you're going for a special economic development project, that you verify and confirm that it would be appropriate with the CDBG program first. But that's different things involving commercial industrial buildings, as stated here, and their improvements, acquisition, construction, reconstruction, rehabilitation, or used as assistance to identify to an identified private for-profit entity or entities. So, and some other options there, like create and maintain jobs for low or moderate income persons, and assist businesses that provide goods or services needed by and affordable to low and moderate income residents. It did specify in the application that the majority of projects awarded are planning and community development. So special economic development projects are not typically funded or funded as they don't fund as many as they do for the other categories. You'll see ineligible projects, government buildings we already discussed, equipment, so we can't buy a refuse truck or any type of heavy equipment. Regular government operations, we can't use it as a revenue replacement. Maintenance and operation, can't use it to maintain our water treatment plant, or political activities. So I would leave that question then is, does the Seldovia City Council wish to see the city pursue a submission for the upcoming CDBG program funding? Applications are typically due the first week of December. They are a heavy lift. I don't know if you remember seeing Rachel's binders, you're looking at 4 200-page binders. They're copies, but so 1 and then 3 more, because you have to have 4 for each project being shipped to Fairbanks prior to the first week of December. And then if so, what eligible project would the public and city of Seldovia like the city to see the city pursue? And I'll leave it there. And if it grants more conversation, I can provide more suggestions, but would love to hear what you guys have to say first.
Mayor Campbell.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Couple things come to mind. What I'm not sure what type of improvement would be included in the harbor or the dock. If there's anything that might apply there. The one big thing that comes to me is I'd love to see that cleaning station moved away from the ramp, maybe down to the end of that run anyway, just because of the smell of it. I don't think that's, but then the other thing that comes to my mind is the public restrooms that are there in the harbor office, if those could be redone. And not only that, Jeremiah, you might have something to add to this, but once the visitors get to the other end of town, some of our private facilities are used pretty extensively. I can't tell you how many times I've seen our places packed and people walk in and use our facilities and then walk out. So I just wonder, as we have more people to the community, could another public restroom maybe be built with these type of funds, maybe in the park across the street, for example, or something. I'm just throwing out ideas, that you could use those funds for, but I'm pretty new to the game. So anyway, that was my thoughts, Jeremiah.
Okay, sounds good, John. Anyone else?
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
I think this doubles back on our conversation earlier. And so my wheels were turning, and I almost want to kind of look at, you, Heidi, and our staff, as you look back at that strategic plan and maybe coming back to us as council and identifying how we prioritized that. We see our number ones. It seemed like a consensus as the repairs, maintenance of buildings and infrastructures that we already have and really identifying, because you guys are a little more familiar with what qualifies and saying, hey, these are those items you guys put as your number one priorities. We need to find funding for it. We need to have it done. These are the ones we see that would be fit for this. And then from there, we can look at what that cost would be so that we know what that 25% match would be. Because some of them, it might make sense. Some, it might not be the right time to use, this grant for that. But that would be how I would like to see this moving forward rather than, starting brand new, since we already have a plan.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ashley. Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, on that, Heidi, can you remember or remind me what we applied for last time with those? I remember all the information got shipped out of here, but what was it we were applying for that we did not get?
No, we did receive it. It was the multipurpose building. So the roof, the new roof, and all the improvements that happened on this multipurpose building were a CDBG grant. And what didn't get to happen was the siding, because the CDBG grant that we received was a coronavirus prevention specific, and that wasn't included in that project, or didn't qualify under that project. But it was suggested that if the city wants to see the siding and the rest of the improvements for the building done, that would be a project that could be pursued for the upcoming funding cycle. I liked where Councilmember Keithley went with that, and knowing what was in the plan, because it should be something that is already identified as a project. Did pull out a few project ideas, but obviously we want to hear, they're from everybody, because there may be things that are not on the list.
Right.
And you can see in your packet, you can see the past however many years, there's at least 10 years worth of projects that were granted through the program up to 2020. I couldn't find anything newer at this time, but up to 2020 in your packet, there's a list of grants that have been awarded, or projects that have been awarded.
Refresh my memory. Did we end up having to put 25% with that grant?
We did not, because it was a coronavirus prevention grant, but we did have to provide the funding for the improvements to the areas that were governmental specific. So this room, we paid for the improvements on this room.
Okay. So that's always something to think about, is that 25% that we'd have to come up with. Well, yeah, I agree with what Ashley said about how we can prioritize what we already have going and what we could apply for. And again, we're looking at on our list, we've got already down the multipurpose room. So that may be a logical step. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Real quick, I'd like to just chime in on one thing. I know that, and I'm fine with, going through, looking at stuff that's on the list, but I know a simple one for me is, public access in terms of the way, people get around town. And I know, for example, Jerry talked about the boardwalk, but our sidewalks are in rough shape, to the point where, what little sidewalk we has, some of it or most of it's deteriorated, cracked with, some spots that are, big tripping hazards, areas where we could definitely use more sidewalk, and then just access, ADA access where, you can have smooth transitions and stuff. That's huge all over. Anchorage has been in years now of updating all their sidewalks in the entire town, just to get them all ADA with the curb cuts and the transitions for, wheelchairs, bikes, everything. So sidewalks and sidewalk improvement, replacement and new would be one that I would really like to see for something on a grant, this type of grant. Nothing too complicated, but pretty straightforward, easy to quantify. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I think since we already started this building, I think to finish it would be really nice. And since I don't know exactly how that works, but since the Fuel and Lube is a city entity, can we somehow do both?
It has to be project specific, so we could not do both, but you could, I even made a call to verify the Seldovia Fuel and Lube roof would be considered a community development. So it is, with our brief conversation, it sounds like that project would qualify.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that would be my thought.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, let's see if there's anyone.
Hold on, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Sorry. Sorry, I didn't really hear too much of John and Ashley's comments, but do we have any kind of idea on what the roof replacement on the Fuel and Lube would cost?
Well, not specifically. I know that about 8 years ago, it would have been about 80,000. So you can think probably at least double that. To re-shingle this roof at on this building was 90,000 for the multi-purpose building, but that is shingles and labor. And we got off really light because when we put out the RFP, we received the bid, and then we signed the contract. We actually had, but in that time period, the contractor had issue in hiring a roofing company because of the timeline. The roofing company who had originally given a quote was no longer available, and inflation had skyrocketed so high, it was hard to find somebody to come in for that 90,000 to shingle. So that's different. But I would estimate it at least a couple hundred thousand.
Right. Well, I'm just thinking, we get back to that issue we had with the partially funding of the project. If we look at something on our list that we could actually fully fund, I guess we'd still have the 20%, because as much as I'd like to see the value added building completed, what are the dollar numbers on that, especially if we don't even know what completion means? I think that's unrealistic at this point. I don't know what point it's going to be realistic, but I would be in support of, if we could fix something and get it funded, that would be nice. We don't need leaky roofs. I don't know. My 2 cents.
Okay, thanks, Jen. Okay, is there anyone from the public that wishes to weigh in on this?
Yeah, we have Pearlie.
Okay.
Yeah, on your deal about the sidewalks, wouldn't that be a state issue? Why should we have to get funding for something that the state's supposed to be doing? Or they just maintain the street?
Yeah, that's actually a good point that I did not consider. I don't know if the sidewalks are state or city. I honestly don't know.
Seems
Heidi,
like
any idea?
Seems like I remember somebody telling me that at one point there was supposed to be sidewalks all the way to the airport, and they just got piecemealed in and they were never connected. I don't know who was doing that, whether it was a state or urban renewal or whatever happened there. I don't know. But anyway, I am understanding that it was supposed to be all the way, like the sidewalk going out Airport Road. Then we're all supposed to be connected all the way through town, but anyway, be something to look into. The value added building, when I was on the council here, we talked about, or I brought up what they do with the kids up in Galena, I think it is.
Nenana.
Huh?
Nenana.
Nenana. Why couldn't that be turned into a dormitory and at that point, there was 40 students over capacity at Nenwellick that would come here in a dormitory type setting. The guy in the Nana I talked to, they gave him 3 million to do his building. Then the school board takes over and pays for the staff, food, and heating and utilities. It's all funded through the school board system. So I don't know. I still think that's something to look into. Or another good project would be a fully staffed senior center where people could go there and not have to leave Seldovia when they get old and needed that kind of attention. But anyway, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Pearlie.
I think that's all the comments we had, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll bring it back to council. What's the deadline on this then, Heidi? I mean,
So the application hasn't come out yet, the NOFO. I anticipate that happening next week. And then typically the first week of December is when applications are due.
okay. So September, October, November. So basically, you've got all of September, October, and November. So you got basically 90 days from the time that thing comes out to get a project identified and the application completely filled out, all the research cost, all that stuff.
Yep, matching funds identified, everything.
Okay. Okay, well, yeah, not sure how we get to a consensus tonight on a project, or are you just looking for some guidance? I mean, I think there would be something we would want to identify. Again, I mean, we need to be sensitive to, your guys, the staff's needs, and what other things you guys are working on as well. So I know there's a series of other grants and things.
Yes, it'd be nice to have a consensus at least for one or two project ideas, because it is a pretty heavy lift application, and for us to even begin the process of vetting costs and eligibility, starting that, we can bring that back if there are a couple of ideas, but if there's one idea, then that'll help us really move forward.
Mayor Campbell?
With seeing if it's.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I think you already have the consensus. I think, if we look at what was on the plan for last year, take a good look at that. And I think the roof down at the Fuel and Lube and the siding on this building and some of the finishing improvements would be your 1 and 2 project.
If I may, I agree. I was going to say, if you can take a look at those priorities we had, and if there's something we're missing where maybe you're already looking at a grant that would be better for those, and then just identifying from that list of what we would call a 1. And I think since you got our consensus of what our 1s are, since you guys know what other grants you're looking at, and can also look at coming to us on where those, ideas of where those funds would come from. And since we know that number of that 25%, so that way if you have 2 of those projects, I feel like I feel fine having you guys pick that out of those top priorities that we had, because we want to get those done.
Yeah, we can only apply for 1.
Right. Right. But that to present to, yeah.
Yeah, that seems like a reasonable solution. And then once that work's been done, and then, maybe by the next council meeting or something, we just have one more quick discussion on, if there's, 1, 2, or 3 projects, which one is council's preferred to move forward on, assuming there's no other, funding sources that the city manager's identified, or, to exactly what Ashley spoke of.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, that's what I was going to recommend, because as we all know, in the past, we do make some quick decisions sometimes that we then later think about are not very good. So I would recommend that we address this put it on the next agenda and just present, what we want to do and just talk about it a little bit and give you the thing then. Does that sound good? Okay, that sound good? Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Bobby. Yeah, Heidi, are you good with that approach?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Let's see. All right. Unfinished business. We have none. Item M, new business. We have none. Item N, city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I took a little bit of a different format today because most of the items on this report are things that we've already discussed. So just giving you brief updates, including number one is very exciting that the SVFD shower installation project is finished. We had Warba come in and he finished the tiling downstairs, and I haven't seen it in person, but I've seen pictures and I've been told it is a work of art, which wasn't the intention, but that's just the way it worked out with the individual that we had working on it. And was even reported to me by Clerk Diamond that she mopped and had a hard time wanting to dump mop water down the drain because it was so pretty. So it's there. Public Works was in there, was planning on being in there today. I should verify if they made it over to remove the door in between the shower stall and the bathroom stall so that for ventilation purposes. But with that, I think that's a huge check off the list, and looking forward to being able to offer that to the volunteers as needed. City awning and SFL roof repairs we discussed. So I am looking for quotes for the awning and the roof building on the dock. It sounds like I need to look for some quotes and estimates for the Seldovia Fuel and Lube building, and I'll bring that back to you guys hopefully at the next meeting. FY23 budget, I just wanted to point out that we did receive the $8,110.51 from APIA for VPSO expenses for FY23. And we received a $5,216.61 credit from AMLJIA. So those go back into the FY23 budget. I think we'll be happy, or I shouldn't say happy, but be pleasantly surprised when we receive our audit for FY23. Staff update, we did post a position for the AMHS ticket agent and ferry line handling position. There are also open positions for the Public Works Operator 1 and Senior Meals Assistant. We did hold one interview for a senior meals position last week. And I have been in discussion with an individual who's interested in the Public Works position. So we will see how that moves ahead. The ferry line handling, or the ticket agent and ferry line handling position was just posted, was it Thursday, Friday. So it hasn't been very long. Refuse truck. This is an eminent need, and you saw on the agenda tonight request for funding so that we can pursue the purchase of a truck hopefully before the snow flies. We also, VSW was advocating on our behalf due to the fact that the solid waste department through DEC identified that the need of a new refuse truck was a high need for Seldovia. And while they don't have direct funding opportunities for that need, VSW did include the request in Indian Health Services FY24 SDS cycle database. So the eligible funding is determined by population. And according to their database, our Alaska Native American Indian population is relatively low based on census and housing information. So we wouldn't be able to receive full funding for a vehicle, but partial funding. The original request that VSW made was for $200,000, and then we would receive based on IHS's allocations, it'd be like 31,000. So it's pretty low. I did request that VSW amend that that funding request for half of that of 200,000, because we have some pretty good quotes and estimates of trucks that would meet our needs. And the 80 and 90,000 range is the high end. So I think that we could get a used vehicle, which is why we're requesting funding for half that. But if we wanted a brand new truck delivered all the way to Seldovia, I feel pretty comfortable we could do that and under $100,000. Let's see. So that will go through their system, and we'll hear later on this year if they'll be able to help us with some funding opportunities. But I think we should probably still pursue buying a truck in the meantime, because winter's coming quickly. Outhouse porta potty maintenance, we did close Jack Loft porta potty off. It's overflowing and it needs maintenance, and we are still searching for solutions. It sounds like we may have the opportunity to partner with a private resident with similar needs in the future, or still looking at possibly barging in a truck and utilizing the state when they come in to haul trucks and vehicles out from Jack Loft. STIP, I really want to put a bug in your guys' ear. If you have not had a chance to review the Alaska's statewide transportation improvement plan, the STIP, I did send out an email with a link in it, and in case you need it again, let me know. Please take that opportunity. The comment period closes September 3rd. I've heard from multiple representatives, including Representative Vance, that it is extremely important that communities and individuals provide comment on projects that they support, as well as oppose. So Seldovia does have a project included in the STIP, and that's that 22,000 for road material through the CDS appropriation. So if you want to lend your support to any project or opposition to any project, now's the time. Upcoming UAF and NWS presentation, you heard from Elena today. They will be presenting in Seldovia on September 7th. That meeting will be held at the Seldovia Village Tribe building in their upstairs boardroom. And then SVT also invited Aviva Braun with the National Weather Service to come to town and present. That'll be September 12th. I also spoke with Aviva, and she is willing to present virtually to the Seldovia City Council on September 25th for any of those that can't make it to the meeting in town. So we'll have that communication, but definitely if you can attend either meeting or both meetings, please do. Or I'd recommend it. ARWA, we had Mark and Kevin with ARWA visit Seldovia last week. Mark is, I guess, the backflow preventer guy for the state, like the guy. And so he was able to do some work at the water treatment plant, some work at the harbor. And that was fantastic having him on board. Kevin came down to help operator Cameron formulate a plan for the Inside Beach lift station. It is in need of some serious repair in short order. So they were hoping to get the project done when they were here, but you know how those kind of things go when you plan things, everything needed another step. So they think they have a pretty good plan formulated, and we'll come back next month to complete those repairs. So we're really thankful for having them. I was also told by operator Cameron, as he works with our remote maintenance operator, who is Todd from the city of Homer. And his last name is escaping me at this moment. I apologize. That he was also very excited about the project and interested in coming over and maybe even sending some guys to help if we need them. So it's nice to know that they are on board with continuing to help us in this partnership and collaboration. And we definitely want to keep them as an asset. Kirsten Vessel with AML-JIA was here today. She's our risk assessment specialist. AML-JIA is our property insurer and our general liability insurer. She had the opportunity to tour Jack Loft Bay Dock, the harbor, the boardwalk, and even went out on the dock. And that was the last thing I asked her. So she'll present reports of just recommendations of things that we can improve safety in each area. And they continue, they've been really great to work with, and they really want to promote that they're here to help us and support us, not to hinder us. So it's really just a matter of trying to help us remain safe and keep our risk assessment low. With that in mind, we did receive a platinum award through AMLJIA for the 2023 loss control. Thanks to the diligence and hard work of our safety officer, Jamie Martin. We held monthly employee safety trainings, or almost monthly, and we look forward to seeing this program continue with Safety Officer Loudermilk. State revolving fund, we're still working through that process. I'm going to start an environmental review this week for that loan, and DCRA has all the information that we needed to submit for our off-cycle scoring in order to qualify. So fingers crossed that all goes through well. Still waiting for consideration of lift station pump replacement project. We still need to obtain value engineering plans for the raw water transmission line. VPSO Morgan is still at academy training, and VPSO Patterson will be at the academy for a few weeks in September to assist. So he's been in discussion with Alaska State Troopers about that. They're aware and will continue supporting the community, and possibly will have an officer presence in the community during that time. Certainly they'll come over as needed. Harbor and Jackloff sheds, we talked about that earlier. The Harbor and Jackloff and then Harbor sheds are getting a facelift. New wheels were purchased and installed on Harbor carts. New life rings were installed at the Harbor and Jackloff did receive new hoop rings, as well as the Harbor received new finger pins per Arc and Fire. Still working on the drainage map and stormwater management plan. I have a postcard on the table. If you haven't seen it yet, it should have gone out to all the property owners. I'm waiting back for the digital version so that we can put that online via Facebook and the websites. Definitely want comments back. So if you have any concerning stormwater management in Seldovia, please fill that out and get that in. Operator Cameron is registered for our online level 2 water treatment class. That'll happen September 11th through October 3rd. This is really big because he was trying to figure out a way to get it without having to leave the community. So definitely give him encouragement as he works through this class. Once he is certified for level 2 operations, the city will meet certification requirements for the water treatment plan and our alternative method of systems supervision, AMOS, which is who we work with, Todd, as our remote supervision. Our remote supervisor will no longer be required, but definitely, as mentioned, we want to keep him part of the crew. Public Works fleet, still waiting to hear back from NC Machinery pertaining city equipment. Dock, we had an inspection on June 22nd for an underwater inspection, so we're waiting on that. Everything else really just still waiting on those things that are getting buttoned up. And you'll see in the enclosures the ongoing grant progress report from the last meeting. I'll just keep this in here and keep it updated as needed, as well as an enclosure for the Rural and Tribal Assistance Pilot Program online application. That was the one for the historic boardwalk, and our letter of support. It's a draft for the Seldovia refuse collection to IHS. I did receive the final letter of support with the entity's information this afternoon, but the packet had already gone out, so it's pretty much the same. And I'm here for questions.
Okay, thanks, Heidi. Any questions or comments for the city manager regarding the report tonight?
I have just a comment and a question.
Okay.
Good job on that report. Are we moving? I'm assuming we're moving still in the right direction with our best practice score.
So that's what the off-cycle scoring is. We are moving in the right direction. It's funny that Jan was able to get us cleared up with the IRS, and then of course that's no longer a requirement. But the place where we fell short this cycle is that we while the council had appropriated funds for the water and sewer fund last year from the ending fund balance into the budget to cover any deficit. The city wrote a fine line from January through June of being in the hole, not in the hole, in the hole, in the hole with expenses. And that's something we need to be cognizant of in the future, is that they want to see us in the black for water and sewer through the whole year. So that part of that off-cycle scoring is, as Finance Officer Yeager presented at the last meeting or the previous meeting, we updated the report, her report for June 2023 to include those fund balance transfers. And then we had to take that back all the way to January and show those in each of her cash reports that they evaluate and submit those, showing that the transfer happened, which is just, I mean, it's not a physical transfer. It's just a paper transfer. So now it's documented on paper that the transfer happened, and shows those accounts being in the black for the whole year, except for January, the first month. Even with the transfer, water was $300 in the deficit. So I'm hoping that doesn't penalize us. But in the end, at the end of the year, everything came out positive, and with those transfers, I showed a positive account throughout the year. So we'll be keeping an eye on that moving forward for any finance reports and having discussion if we see that's something that I have big concerns about, and I'm really aware of, is that our water and sewer is really just riding a really fine line every month. So we'll keep a close eye.
I'm glad to hear, though, that I mean, you guys worked hard to get that from where it was to where it's at now. So that's really good. All right, thanks.
Any other questions for the manager?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, great report. Thank you, Heidi. The question I have, actually I had one thought that just went out of my brain. Could you refresh my memory with our harbor kiosks, the money that we are taking in every month for the harbor kiosks? What department are those going into? Are they repaying the original department that the money was taken from, or refresh my memory?
Thank you. So through the mayor. So those funds are coming into the general fund. The way that our fund system works is that the general fund holds the several departments. And so while we budget expenses out per department, any income that we bring in, or not income, sorry, that's the wrong word, any revenue that we bring in, just it goes into the overall general fund pot. And then that's what we utilize for the expenses. So many pots for expenses, one pot for revenue. And then when we get ready to have the mid-year budget discussion, or even sooner if council wants, we can discuss what that income, that revenue is for those kiosks, and then suggest a movement of funds from the general fund back to AMLIP. And that, if you remember, were you present for the FY22 audit presentation? That was documented in the FY22 audit, that those funds are due back to AMLIP out from the general fund. So we can keep track of that.
Okay, so we have, right. So the question was basically is we have a plan to get that money from the general fund and put it back in AMLIP or in the permanent fund.
Yes, so that would be done similar to the ordinance that was on the agenda for this evening to appropriate funds. So it could be done as an overall mid-year budget adjustment appropriation, or separately, if that's a desire to see that happen sooner. And you would just appropriate those funds from the general fund back to AMLIP.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, and I think we're probably just on that, probably, Vivian, I think I know where you're going, just if we get, and we probably had it somewhere, but just a quick snapshot of the, since inception, what our lease revenue has been, or any revenue from those structures, to kind of gauge an idea of where we're at overall against the original $30,000 or $35,000 loan.
Right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the manager? Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Heidi. Appreciate all the information.
Mr. Mayor, we have a question from the public.
Okay.
Thank you, Pearlie Morrison. Totally in favor of the new boardwalk. I hope it goes through. Has anybody figured the what the yearly maintenance cost would be on something like that as far as keeping the snow off it? Is it going to be covered like the ramp? So we'll be wide open to what we get for snow load.
At this point it is.
So has anybody tried to figure out what it's going to be cost and who's going to maintain it? Is that city?
I think that's all to be determined in the steering committee, I believe. Sounds like Pearlie's volunteering for the steering committee. All right, thank you for that, those questions. All right, item O, informational items not requiring action. Notice of voter registration. Last day to register to qualify to vote in the October 3rd, 2023 City of Seldovia municipal election is going to be September 3rd. So that's 1 month prior to the vote. So September 3rd, mark that on your calendar. You need to register 30 days in advance. Item O2, logic and accuracy testing of the automatic tabulating equipment that will be used for counting ballots at voting places on October 3rd, 2023 for the Kenai Peninsula Borough. Regular election will begin on Wednesday, September 6th, 2023 and continue as necessary through Friday, September 8th, 2023. City of Seldovia ballots will also be tested during this process. Logic and accuracy testing is open to the public. Heidi, I have a quick question on that. And I think I saw, I don't know if there was a mailer or somewhere else I saw something on that too. Are these just going to be the machines that'll be in the borough office and then all communities are going to send in sample ballots, or are they going to actually deploy some of these machines to communities in the borough?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the logic and accuracy testing will take place at the borough. Our city clerk will go up and attend part of that accuracy testing just to see Seldovia's ballots go through and verify that they're tested at that time. And then they send the tabulator and equipment to each location. So the city of Seldovia will receive a tabulator as well as a tablet, actually 2 tablets, typically one for the day of elections and then one for absentee, as well as all the other voting poll sites in the borough. And then we'll have that done locally. And at this point, we do still hand count our ballots because we only, I think the most I've ever seen is 97 with absentee included. So, but the machine is really nice, the tabulator, because it's a good verification and a quick reference. And it's spot on, or it was last year and the year before. So we utilize both.
Okay, and this is existing equipment. This isn't a new system.
This was the new system that was implemented, was it last year or the year before? 2 years ago. And that came out of, they had a voter or an election stakeholder group that met for a half a year to a year and then provided recommendations moving forward so that the borough and the communities in the borough would be ADA compliant and accessible.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you. Item P, executive session. Looks like there is note there, request for executive session. Let's see. Well, I can see it looks like we're going to have one. I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead.
I move to enter into executive session pursuant to Alaska statutes 44.62.310 parentheses A through C parentheses 2 for matters, subjects that tend to prejudice the reputation and character of any person, provided the person may request a public discussion for the city manager 6-month performance review and invite in Heidi Gagel. And
Okay, do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion to enter into executive session tonight to discuss the city manager's 6-month performance review. That motion was made by Sweat, and we have a second by Keithley. Okay. Any further discussion before we vote? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote on whether or not to enter executive session. All those in favor, Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Hi.
Swick,
Aye.
Keithley,
Aye.
Sweat. Sweat,
Aye.
okay. All right, we have 5 that voted in the affirmative to enter executive session, with one absent, and Heidi Gagel is invited in. And it looks like for Vivian, myself, and Jen, we will be using a separate link. We'll have to get out of this one, and there was a separate link that will be used for the executive session. Heidi, anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so the regular meeting link will remain open for anybody who may be in the audience. The recording will turn off in the live stream, but the meeting link itself will remain open. And then when the regular meeting comes back into session, those individuals, will go back into record and and live streaming. So those individuals can still participate or still be waiting in the regular meeting link if they want.
Okay, sounds good. We'll go ahead and recess, and you guys will clear the council chambers, and we'll go into executive session.
Okay, thank you.
It's like, why are you on your computer? No, it's council chambers. No. I think you have a bunch of attendees probably needing to be promoted. Okay, you can tell him we're live and ready when he is.
Okay, it looks, okay, there's Jen, Vivian, and then audio audit. I don't know what that thing is.
We're live and ready, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, sounds good. All right, looks like we have everyone back. We'll go ahead and look for a motion to come out of executive session.
Make a motion to come out of executive session.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to come out of executive session by Sweat. We have a second by Keithley. Any further discussion before on the motion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of coming out of executive session, Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Keithley,
Aye.
and Sweat.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5 in the affirmative and 1 absent. We are now out of executive session. In executive session, we held a discussion in regards to the city manager's 6-month performance review. We took no action in the executive session. Is there any further discussion on the executive session? I would look for a motion at this time.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yes, based on our city manager's contract, the city manager is eligible. I'd like to make a motion. The city manager is eligible for a performance-based increase of 2.5%, their current annual salary 6 months after their start date, and an annual salary increase not to exceed 5% each year upon their annual performance-based review beginning on January 1st, 2024, and each year to follow January 1st, 2025.
Okay, we have a motion by Rojas. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion before we vote? Okay, we will go ahead on the vote on the motion. And just to be clear, this is vote for a 2.5% base salary increase based on the contract requirements and the city upholding its end of the contract. All those in favor of the motion, Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy, Swick,
Aye.
Keithley,
Aye.
Sweat.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5 in the affirmative with 1 absent. And that includes all of our action on item P. Item Q, council and mayor comments concerning items not on the agenda. Rojas.
A long night, but thank you everyone for your hard work tonight. That's it.
Thank you, Kennedy.
I just have one. Did we receive any bids on the auction for the boat?
We did not. It is set for.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Swick,
No comment.
Keithley,
No comment.
and Sweat.
I have no comment.
That's pretty amazing. Okay. All right. Yep. Thanks everyone. Yeah, I know long night. Had to get through some work. Appreciate everyone's input. Thanks to the staff for being patient with us tonight. Our next meeting will be a regular meeting held on September 11th, 2023 at 6 p.m. And I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any objections? Okay, hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate everyone's time tonight.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Okay, good night. Have a good evening, you guys.
Good night, son.
Good night, mother.
That, so you start.